Well, the reason I'm here is, when I was 13 years, well, I was 10 years old when my mom got remarried. And when she did, this thing she married came into my room and raped me. And they had to take me to the hospital and put 3 stitches in me.
That's when you were 10?
Yeah.
So then what happened? How'd you end up leaving home?
When I turned 13, I just, packed up my bags and trucked on.
What do your parents think you're doing, or what's your mother think you're doing then?
I don't know what they think. I haven't written them a letter since year before last.
They don't care, you don't think?
No.
This boy was partially a victim of poverty. On the streets, though, you find boys from varied backgrounds. One 15-year-old from a wealthy family tells of being cast out because he was failing in school. His parents are divorced. Neither his father nor his mother wants to care for him. He started out as a prostitute when he was 12.
You gotta keep hustling with yours?
Yeah, I have to. I mean, where's a 15-year-old going to get a job, man? It isn't too likely.
What do you think about what you do? You proud of it?
No. I think disgusting, revolting,
Why do something that's disgusting and revolting?
Well, you gotta eat and you gotta sleep,
The worst they could do is kill me,
Well, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I mean, aren't you worried about that? Don't you value your living?
No, right now I don't.
You don't value your life?
Not really.
You don't want to stay alive?
I mean, I want to stay alive and all, but, if I die, what the I mean, it can't be much worse.
I know. I mean, is it that bad out there? Don't you look forward to the day when you get a good job?
Yeah, but that's all I can do is look forward, Live each day as it comes.
So you're really not happy here?
No. I'd much rather be at home, you know.
Well, down in Houston, they have streets where they hustle, which you don't find in some other cities, right?
That's right.
What kind of now? This is apparently these are the entrepreneurs, as the D.C. guy talked about, right?
These are cold little kids looking for money to buy some food, money to get a room, hopefully with some privacy, with somebody if they can't get any privacy. To put it in the bluntest terms, at 2 in the morning, when the bars close, the boys who've had only one customer that night and need more money, or haven't had any customers at all, start bidding against each other for the favors of whatever pederasts are patrolling the street.
You've actually observed this?
Yes, yes. That's at 2 o'clock. It lasts for about an hour, a little longer, and then some kids are left, and many of them have nowhere to go. They might have what they call a trick pad that they can go to, and I hope they get the $25 to pay the rent there the next day. I've seen them climb under cars to get shelter and warmth.
To sleep, you mean?
Yes, at 4 in the morning on this one night in November when it was cold, and the boys had T-shirts on, not jackets, and they didn't have jackets.
These are mostly destitute, well, you might say street people.
Well, they might come from well-to-do homes, Doug, but when they're gone for a few months, they're poor.
Down and out.
They are now poor. A rough count that I made was that there are 400 kids in an area of half a square mile.
Is there any...
Now, let me finish the story.
Sure.
The police then came and rounded them up in vans, and I heard over police radio that their count was that there were 400 kids. And they drove them to a suburb of Houston called Pasadena and let them out.
Why did they do that?
They did it because if they formally arrested them, they would have had to book them and put them someplace, and they had no room for them. If they had room for them, they couldn't have protected them from other people in the jails. They didn't have the heart to arrest them. Technically, they arrested them by taking them into custody, but they didn't have the heart to do any more. They wanted to clean up the street because this was the week before the national election in 1980. They had no place to find shelter for them because there were only 42 beds in the whole city, and some of those were questionable as to their safety for the boys. So they took them for a ride and let them out. They didn't have anything else to do.
Tom, is race a factor here, and if so, in what degree, what extent?
It's a factor in a surprising way, Frank. We've already mentioned, but maybe not emphatically enough, that these kids are poor. Once they're out on the street, even if they come from middle-class families, they become poor. But overwhelmingly, the runaway kids are from poor families, from struggling families. You would assume then that they would be heavily minority kids. This isn't the case. Overwhelmingly, the kids who are throwaways, runaways, who hit the streets and work in the life are white. Part of the reason is that the market among the well-to-do men for boys is a white market. The men want white kids. They don't want Chicanos. They don't want black kids. They want white kids, fair kids, Nordic-looking kids, the ideal type.
What about wealthy black or Chicano males?
They also tend to prefer white kids. You can find in what's called the Farm League, in the parks, on the streets, at the curbs, totally on their own, living hand-to-mouth, roughing it. You can find minority kids, but they have a hard time. They have a hard time getting customers. Mostly, they get employed in the dark, literally. They work in the cubicles in the magazine stores where their customers won't see them. There's an ugly term called glory hole for the kind of thing that happens in the cubicles. I think the name is suggestive enough itself. What it means that the customer doesn't have to see the person who's servicing him, and then the person who's getting the service fantasizes that the little boy is blonde and blue-eyed and white.
Well, what about Atlanta then? You were talking in the previous program about this being the situation with the Atlanta kids.
Well, I think there are indications, as I said, that the kids there are hustlers. They are hustlers who are out working to help their families. They are not throwaways. They are not runaways. And they are in the farm circuit. They're working out of a park. They're not in the penthouses. They're not in call boy services. Black kids are out there working, and they're not getting the best trade. They're getting what is called rough trade. Men who will pay less and want more and be more likely to inflict violence as part of the price. Another thing I'd like to say here is that on the basis of what I've learned over the last 3 years, I have a feeling, it's not a firm conclusion by any means, but it's a strong feeling that there's a second reason why the kids out there caught up in this are primarily white. The first reason is that the rich men want white boys, but I think there's a second reason, and that is that poor, struggling black families are taking better care of their kids than white families are. They're not pushing them out. The boys aren't running away. They're keeping the contact with home, even if they do have to resort to this for economic reasons. And when the families find out it's happening, they accept the kids and they love them, and they don't punish them, reject them, and throw them out.
What about the kids themselves? What happens to them? Assuming they're ones that live, and can they get out of the life, and what happens to them when they do? What are they like?
In the first place, they mostly don't survive. They mostly, literally, don't live to be 20 years old. As far as I know, the best information I have is that these kids die. They waste away, they kill themselves, somebody kills them, and that's it. And we're talking about over half of the kids who make their living this way for a period don't survive adolescence. They don't become adults. Those who do have a tremendously difficult time.
Of course it does damage. It does tremendous damage to self-esteem. You have to grow up with a general bitterness towards adults, where you find with all these strangers now into your life, where you're literally being used and pawed over.